Welcome to Speed Vector, the podcast dedicated to the art, risk, and obsession of speed flying. I'm your host, Victor Garcia, speed flyer, skydiver, cinematographer, Navy veteran, and full-time gravity junkie. Every week, we dive into the lines we fly, the gear we trust, and the stories that push us past the ridge and into the void. Whether you're just learning to launch or chasing the perfect line, this is where speed flyers come to connect, learn, and stoke the fire. This is Speed Vector. What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Speed Vector podcast. This is episode number 21. Today I'm joined by Boni and Jared from Little Cloud, USA, the dynamic duo bringing that unique French paragliding spirit stateside. We talk about wings, design philosophy, and what makes Little Cloud such a rad company. I had the pleasure of meeting these two at Speedfest a couple weeks ago in Chelan, and I knew that I had to get them on the podcast. They're super cool, really easy to talk to, and arguably some of the most current pilots in the world right now. They combined have over probably 20,000 flights. I know that Boni's well over 12,000 and Jared is almost in the 8,000 realm. They've been at it for over a decade each. And they definitely come from different backgrounds. Boni comes from more of a paragliding background, and Jared from pure speed flying. And even though Little Cloud does not make a speed wing, like specifically, if you watch how these two fly, you would be surprised to know that they don't make speed wings because it looks like they are speed flying. It looks like the most fun you can have under nylon, to be honest. And it's a flying style that I strive to emulate and one that I respect deeply. So sit back, relax, and enjoy episode 21 of the podcast. That's good. You have like a ton of nicknames, right? You both do.
Yeah.
I've gathered
Bon
this.
and Jar Jar.
Nice. Where did that originate from?
So my niece started calling me Bon Bon when she was about 2 years old and able to speak, and it just stuck 25 years now. So
Wow.
So then we kind of use the double nickname for everybody, like in the family, and then we even use it for Tom Bordeaux, the Little Cloud designer. I call him Tom, and it's just kind of funny.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's
somehow
cool.
I got stuck with Jar Jar,
Yeah.
which is not my favorite, but that's
Jar
all right.
Jar.
It works.
What's the story behind that? Was that random or
Just the double.
just Jared, Jar Jar?
Yeah. Jar Jar.
Exactly.
Star Wars fan at least, or no? Is that the problem? Or
Well, I am, and that's why that's not my favorite nickname, but you know, it is what it is.
So you're telling me you're a fan, but you're not like a diehard fan. I get it.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, thanks so much for being here. Welcome to the show. Really appreciate your time. I know we've kind of gone back and forth and tried to make it work in crazy schedules, but we're here and we're doing it. So greatly appreciate that. I met you guys briefly at Speedfest in Chelan a couple weeks ago, and unfortunately I wasn't able to stay for the whole thing, so I didn't get to demo any of your wings. But you both are the figureheads, the owners, right, of Little Cloud USA? How does it? Yes.
Right. Yep.
That's really cool. What is it like owning a company that manufactures paragliders and mini wings and like parakites and no speed wings, but kind of a speed wing? I don't know. We can dive into it, but what's it like being in that role?
Yeah. So we're the importers. So we work with Tom. Tom's the designer and manufacturer and all that kind of stuff, and we're the importers here in the U.S. Basically, just a quick background on ourselves. So, I've been flying since 2013, so about 12, almost 13 years. I initially started paragliding, but always with the goal of speed flying. That was always what I wanted to do. Paragliding was just my stepping stone into speed flying. After I got my P2, I went down to Saboba. I got a Firefly, and I was like, all right, time to speed fly. I didn't know shit at the time, still don't know shit now, but just kind of trying to figure out what I was doing. And so, I got into the speed flying thing, and very early in my career, I considered myself a speed flyer. All the speed flyers considered me a paraglider because I had my P2, right? But, I didn't do much paragliding. It was more speed flying for me. I was living up in Seattle at the time. And basically, I was speed flying for a couple of years, trying different wings. I had a lot of ozone wings. I had, Mirage, all that kind of stuff. Was really enjoying the sport. And then I moved from Seattle down here to California. And that's kind of when I started doing a bit more paragliding than I was speed flying. When I was, doing that down here, we do a lot of coastal soaring. And I found my paragliders to be big, boaty, heavy, what most speed flyers would say. Most speed flyers who don't paraglide would say, big, boring, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And then I happened to get my hands on a little cloud. It blew my mind. It was a 23 meter, but it flew like a speedway, right? Like I was like, whoa, this is amazing, right? So that was kind of my foot in the door with Little Cloud, and I started flying those, and then Little Cloud makes a whole range of wings, from small wings to big wings. Biggest wing we have is a 42 or 41, something like that. Smallest wing we have is 6.4, right? So literally the whole range of wings. So I just kind of started flying these wings. They were working really well for me at the coast. And then, I was flying kind of the mini wings, the smaller ones, and I just sort of fell in love with them, right? And so when you get into the smaller ones, they are more mini wings than speed wings, right? And so they have a lot more glide, a lot more performance. They perform more like a little paraglider than a speed wing. And so it's just a different style of flying. Anyone that knows us, that's seen us flying at Saboba, we're doing this a lot, right? We're constantly turning, doing barrel rolls, whatever, because we need to get down, right? Because the wings have so much glide. So it's kind of a different style of flying, but, so that's how we got into it. And we've been flying them here in the US. And so, there was a previous owner, Jeremy, who owns Saboba now. He was the original importer for Little Cloud. And then when he took over for Saboba, he asked us to take on importing the wings. So we did that. And so now that's been a couple of years. And yeah, we love them.
4 years, I think.
Super cool. What wing comes in a 6.5? Is it?
That's actually the Bon.
No way. Okay.
That's a custom one for Boni, but it is a Spearline.
It's an easy.
Spearline
Okay.
easy.
Yeah. Does it fly like more efficiently than like a 6.5 meter would, and name the other company in a speed wing? So it's more glide.
Mm-hmm.
Still fast as hell, I'm
Yeah,
sure.
it's a higher aspect.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like we said, it's kind of more of a mini wing. So even my fat ass, I can launch it. So it does have a bit of glide. It's very, very, very fast, and when you turn it, it does like at my weight, it kind of falls out of the sky. But definitely like flying straight, flat level, even on a 6.5, I'm probably getting 6-to-1 glide maybe.
That's amazing.
So it's pretty impressive.
That is cool.
Until I turn. When I turn, not so much.
You're going to the ground for sure, right? Ground hungry, I'm sure. No, I've watched you guys fly for a long time, and it's crazy to be sitting here, across from the screen. Of course, I wish we were in person, but yeah, it's pretty wild to be sitting here talking to you. For me, at least, kind of pinching myself, because big fan of your flying, and you make flying mini wings look really easy. And it's not that they're hard to fly; it's just they're so different than what I'm used to. I'm talking from my perspective, right? As a skydiver and then a speed flyer, I'm not used to like huge amount of energy transfer upward after a maneuver, which is what you get with like a mini wing normally. I have not been able to fly a Little Cloud, Spearline or anything yet, but I really want to, because I'm curious what it feels like just with the energy management. I think it makes you a more, all around pilot. But just watching the clips from Speedfest, even just a couple weeks ago, I was like, man, you guys are making, like, it just looks like a playground when you're flying a Little Cloud, which is so cool. I mean, you're still being super aggressive. You're still doing all the stuff, but you're not like, you have time. Like, there's more time to do stuff. I mean, am I making sense here? I guess. It just seems like a lot more fun, to be honest. But
it's really cool. I'll say that, for many, many years, I've been a proponent of glide, right? Because glide is safety, right? If you need to get away from the hill, you need to be able to fly away. And so when you have, something that has energy and has glide, and if you're using a lot of that energy close to the terrain, you always have energy to get away from the terrain, right? And it's kind of a mistake that a lot of folks make, especially when they're learning to proxy fly and that sort of thing, where they're like, I can't get down, I need a smaller wing, right? Well, the smaller wing, all it does is take away margin, right? So you have less glide, which makes it easier to stay on the terrain, but if you miscalculate, you don't have the energy to get away. So I'm actually quite excited about, all these new parakites that are coming out. For me, it's kind of exciting because I'm like, oh, people are now starting to understand, right? Like having glide is a good thing, having energy is a good thing, right? And so the parakites are kind of showing that to people, right? And yeah, it's a totally different style of flying. With a parakite, it's easier to kill some of that energy, but what's sort of blowing people's minds, what's kind of getting them excited about it is energy, right? And that energy retention, as you said, it's a different style of flying, and you definitely have to learn it, right? It's not something that comes, but it just opens up a heck of a lot more, right? We can fly places on the hill we couldn't fly before. We can fly lines we couldn't fly before. As you said, we can, there's something that I love doing at Saboba, right? Because we have a lot of little canyons and stuff, right? And so I can like dive into a canyon and then like pop up over it, right? And kind of come up over the other side, bringing a lot of speed and energy. And that's just on a traditional speed wing, they're fun. They there's a lot of things that they do really, really well, but that's something that you just don't get until you get into a parakite or something like a little cloud with energy.
Sure. Yeah, and I mean that margin is critical because you can still be in the terrain, but you still have the energy and the ability to get out of it, which is huge. I'm a huge fan of parakites too. I had a line 13 for a while. It's actually what I was flying when I broke my leg, so I ended up trading it for something else just because I needed to upsize. And anyway, I didn't want to get rid of it. It wasn't the wing's fault; it was my own fault. But it was. I love that style of flying, just where it's all in your hands, and you want to flatten it out. You just put your hands down. You're getting an 8-to-1, and you want to go straight at the ground. You put your hands up, and you got like a 1.7-to-1 or something insane. So super fun. Yeah, I'm a fan. I totally agree with you. But Boni, we're not going to forget that Boni is here. Please, I want to do the same thing here. Just introduce yourself and tell us about your background a little bit and kind of how you got to where you're at right now.
Okay. I started flying in 2009. Actually, I bought a one-way ticket to Hawaii, and my first day on the island, we were driving to North Shore, and I looked up in the sky, and I was like, I saw them paragliding. I go, what the hell is that? I want to do that. And I ended up taking a tandem and then doing lessons like a week or two later, and then I've been hooked ever since. So I think one thing, and Todd may have mentioned to you, like we're like some of the most current pilots in the world, probably. We fly as often as we can. And so, yeah, I've stuck with it the whole time, and I'm still really excited about it because you're always learning in this sport. So it's always taking you somewhere. And, like speed riding, speed flying. I always wanted to do speed flying. And then after I learned to paraglide, and I never thought I would get a chance to. And then I met Jared, and he kind of taught me. So that was about 10 years ago. And he put me on a 12-meter Little Cloud Easy, and I was like, oh my gosh, this thing's amazing. And then I got a 21-meter Goose, and that changed my flying style and a lot because I'm so small that 21-meter was about the average size back then. But this one was special. It was different. It was trimmed a little faster. I could fly it in high winds and still penetrate and have a lot of fun with it. Like Jared said, the first time I flew it, I was like, this is like a giant speed wing. It's just really fun and maneuverable and playful. And like I said, I could go in strong winds, which I wasn't used to because my other gliders that I was flying were just too slow. So, and then, they got smaller and smaller. And I found myself living here in California, flying in the coast and decent winds. My full-size glider is a 16-meter now. That's my everyday glider. If it's a little bit lighter winds, then I'll go up to a 19. I'm rarely flying anything larger than that now. But then I can even easily soar a 10-meter puffin or 14-meter Moet, or the new 14 puffin is amazing. So I'm really lucky I get to fly small wings like that. And we speed soar them a lot too. We have like the small spear lines, which we speed fly in Saboba. We can speed soar them too. So in the stronger winds, I can just jump out there and fly around our little 10-meter. It's super fun.
Yeah, she always gets to be on the fun stuff. And I'm always jealous going, shit, I'm too bad.
Wing loading is a thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's
Yeah.
really cool. How long were you in Hawaii for?
That's what I was excited about. Sorry, that's what I
No,
was excited about the custom 6.4 easy because I was like, oh, I finally have wing loading, and I love that wing. It's so fun.
I
I
bet.
was in Hawaii for 4 years.
Oh, cool. On Oahu.
On Oahu, yeah, it's
Nice.
the best island to fly. And then moved to Seattle, and I met Jared there, and we became friends and doing hike and flies all the time. And then work brought him down here in San Francisco. So
Cool. So Tiger was the local spot for you guys in
yeah,
Seattle. Yeah.
That was a
we
spot.
did a lot of
Oh
hike
yeah.
and flies there.
Like that thing so many times.
That I've done the hike. I haven't flown it though. It scares me. I don't know. It's the trees. Like
Oh,
just
it's
staring
cool.
at the trees off the
Yeah,
north launch. I'm like, I don't know. Maybe with like, a little
it's
cloud,
fine.
I'd probably feel better. But with the 9 meter Rapidos, I was like, meh, maybe not. Maybe
Yeah.
not. Although people do it every
Yeah.
day, it's just yeah, the
Yeah,
sight
I
pictures
mean,
are
you'd want to
scary
upsize to get more comfortable, but
for sure.
you know, more experience and you could get
Yeah.
there, but
Yeah.
you want to take baby steps and do it safely, so
Of course. Yes. Yeah. So I have a 14 meter Freya right now. That's I had a 15 meter Thor, and then I traded that to a buddy like just temporarily for this Freya because it's even more chill. 15 meter Thor is still an aggressive wing, even though it's a 15. My wing
that's
loading went
a
from like the
aggressive wing for being so new, yeah.
right. Well, I mean, I was, I my progression was different. And I've talked about it ad nauseum, but just to get you guys up to speed, like I was getting into swooping and skydiving. I progressed pretty fast. I had really good mentors. And then we moved to Washington, and I just decided I was going to start speed flying. Like I was kiting a lot on the beach there across from Dillingham quite a bit before we moved, but that's to me, it wasn't a good place to learn to speed fly. And even though Ian was there and like I had the ability to, it was more just like, let's just go kite on the beach, which we never actually did. I never actually linked up with Ian. I might have said hi a couple times in passing, but he worked at the other drop zone. We were at I was at the other one. Um, yeah. So anyway, and then, yeah, just like that was my entire existence last summer when we moved here. It was just finding new places to fly near us and then driving to Chelan. So I put an ungodly amount of miles on my truck and was in Chelan 2 to 3 times a week, and pretty much working with Todd like every single time I was there. So I was like hyper current, and I have an aviation background before even skydiving. So like I just and I'm an athlete, blah blah, right? And it all just kind of clicked. So I never went outside of like Todd's advice. It was like I went from a 15 meter Spitfire 2, which is like not a great wing to learn on, but that's what I did, to an 11 meter Mirage, put like 200 on that, and then basically was like, Todd, what do you think? Like, what should I do? Should I stay on this? I kind of want a 9 meter. I was really into swooping, I'm like, I just want to swoop. I want to go faster. And he's like, you know what? Like, you have a good head on your shoulders. You're hypercurrent. It's not, you're gonna be okay. Just don't think dumb. Like, be careful. Don't like, it's gonna be faster. It's gonna be more responsive. And it was like everything I wanted. Um, but then I got the line, and it kind of like it was hard to fly both because they're so different. So I just started flying the line, and I put like I don't know 30 or 40 laps on that line, and then just caught my toes weird in the rut on the south end of the LZ there at Chelan, which I knew it was there. I mean, I've seen it 400 times. Like I knew it was there. Um, but yeah, I mean, it didn't take much. It just kind of spiral fracture, and that was it. Um, so not the wing's fault, not necessarily a crash, just bad luck in a sense. But it was a wake up call because who's to say keep going down that path, start making more radical maneuvers, and then you end up getting in trouble, and you don't have the experience to like deal with it. Um, I don't know. There's been a lot of accidents this summer, across the world, right? Lots of loss, lots of bad accidents, and it's. I hope it's been a big wake up call for the everybody in the sport, because it's a reality, and it seems like it's a lot of it's not the pilots like you guys that have 10 plus years of experience, 10,000 flights, multiple thousands of hours under a wing. It's people that fall in the category that I fall into, maybe a little bit more, but it's, young in the sport relatively, young in time and seat, right? And then flying in a way that's well beyond the wisdom, whether you're a good pilot or
That's the
not,
key there. I think a lot of it is trying to fly like somebody else. And if you just understand that it's a what's the word I'm looking for? Individual sport, and you understand that and you know that, and you take the progression at your speed, at your level, and not try to fly like somebody else, it makes a huge difference. And progressing slowly is huge. Like, you said you wanted to learn how to swoop better. If swoop your 11, swoop the shit out of that, and you can swoop a 9 like crazy, like way better. I mean, maybe we downsize quickly too, but we put a lot of time in it as well. But yeah, slow progression is key.
Yeah, I think as you know where you're sitting right now, injuries slow you down a lot more than going slow, right? So we always say slow is fast. And there's a couple of things to this point that I want to make. So one is, I've been there, right? I can sit here and I can tell everyone, don't do this, don't do that. I did it, right? Like in the beginning, I flew like a maniac, right? And as sad as this is for me to say, two of the people I looked up to the most died back to back within a week, about a year and change into my speed flying career. And those were the people that I looked up to. Those were the people I wanted to be, right? And as sad as it is that they're dead, they saved my life because I said, what am I doing? That's my path, right? And so, I was doing all those things. I was downsizing too fast. I was flying too aggressively. I was the person that I'm telling everybody not to be, right? And like I said, I got lucky. I got lucky that they learned the lesson for me, right? So from that point, I actually slowed way, way, way down, right? Like I think after both of them died doing barrel rolls, and I don't think I did a barrel roll for probably 4 years after that, right? And I didn't feel the need, right? Like it wasn't part of my flying style. It wasn't I just didn't need it, right? And then, as I got later in my flying career, I thought, okay, so when I fly off like a big cliff in Switzerland or something, right? And I have a few thousand feet, right? That's time to play with the tools in your toolbox. And, I found that I didn't have all the tools in my toolbox. And that's when I started getting back into barrel rolls and that sort of thing, where I was like, hey, this is an appropriate place for what I'm trying to do. Right. And still, even to this day, I don't do them in canyons. I don't do them very low. You know what I mean? Like it's a tool in the toolbox, like anything else. Right. And I think, with folks now, there's a couple things. So one is the wing, like anyone who's new to the sport, trust me, you guys are on like Cadillac equipment, right? Back in the day, it was not this easy. Launching was hard, landing was hard, all the stuff. Barrel rolls, real tricky. You got to get your timing right. And so, what happened was, people grew, the sport progressed, the gear got better, and now it's easy, 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 right? And so again, somebody who's been flying for a year and throws a barrel roll, they're like, I'm an expert. You're not, right? Like you're not. Let's say you really crushed it, right? And then 1 year you did 400 flights, right? And let's say you're like a go-getter and you hiked and you did like 2,000 foot flights for all those, 400 flights. That's probably what, 2 minutes of flying per flight, maybe, right?
Maybe.
So you have 800 minutes, right? Maybe you have 800 minutes. Like what does 800 minutes make you an expert at? Nothing, right? It's a couple hours, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so people kind of get this thing of like, oh, I did it. And the thing is, like, in many cases, like doing these maneuvers is easy, right? And again, that's what I'm saying. If you're up in free air, right? If you fly off a cliff in Lauterbrunnen and you got 2,000 feet, go for it. Have a reserve, right?
Yeah.
But go for it, because that's not the hard part, right? The hard part is what happens if the air is wrong, or you get your timing wrong or something like that, and then you have to be able to recover from it. And the only way you're going to get that experience is with time, right? And so what happens is people get overconfident. They do something and they do it even 10 times, 20 times, 30 times. Like, again, we're talking about number of flights. Then we talk about barrel rolls, right? Like, let's say you're doing 2 barrel rolls per flight, or 5 barrel rolls per flight. So you've done a couple hundred of them, right? It's still nothing, right? Like, think about all the things that we do, all the things that we're learning. You said you're an athlete, like all these sports, right? Like it takes time. It takes repetition to learn these things. And so what happens is you do something in one environment and you think, okay, I can do it. But then the environment changes, right? Like I said, the wind changes, the terrain changes, the air density changes, the temperature changes, anything changes, right? Your weight changes, like the wing is a little wet, the air is dry, like all these things, right? And it gets you out of your knowledge or your comfort zone of what you know, and then you're getting lucky, right? And if I'm sure people on your podcast have given you this advice, right? But there's the skill bucket and the luck bucket, right? And you want to fill the skill bucket, well, and when you're taking stuff out of the luck bucket, you got to be careful. And a lot of this stuff really is luck. And I know I'm dragging on, but one last thing I'll say is that I had a friend tell me, with barrel roll specifically, can you do it 1,000 times perfectly, right? Because if you can't do it 1,000 times perfectly, you will fuck it up because you will do more than 1,000, right? Like over the average person's speed flying career, right? If they do a couple hundred flights, maybe even 1,000 flights, they will do something 1,000 times, right? And so if you can't do it perfectly 1,000 times, you will mess it up. And so you really have to think about these things when you're learning and you're progressing, because it's easy. The wings we're flying today, it's easy. It's easy to throw a barrel, right? Like that's not hard. It's easy to swoop. And actually in a lot of these, the recovery arcs are so much better than they were, right? Like again, on an older wing, they don't come out as fast, they don't come out with as much energy. And so these things are easy, but it doesn't, being able to do them doesn't make you an expert. What makes you an expert is being able to do them consistently in different conditions over and over and over and safely. And so again, I'm sure people get offended, right? And like that's what I'm saying. Sitting here where we are with our time, it's easy to be like, you know what I mean? But like, the reality is like for me, there are a lot of pilots that I respect, and there are a lot of new pilots that I know are skilled, right? And they don't need my respect. My respect means nothing. But the reality is like, in order to gain respect, you need to be able to do these things continuously over time, right? And if you could do them continuously over time, then you have my respect. But in the beginning, right, when folks are just kind of doing things, those of us that have seen it, it's like, man, there's a path, right? And you get lucky or you get hurt, right? And then hurt can be, some severity, right? And we've seen it before. We've seen, you know what I mean? We've seen for every, one person out there that comes and just crushes it, there was a pile of bodies behind them. And I don't necessarily mean dead. I just mean like people got hurt and they got out of the sport, right? And so, yeah, so with progression, like in my opinion, it is like slow is fast, right? There's so many things to learn. There's so many things to do. And, taking your time and really trying to perfect something, right? Like you say, so you're working on a swoop, or you want to swoop, right? So again, you don't start with the 270, right? You start with a much smaller turn. And then you get that turn to the point where you can't squeeze any more energy out of that turn, right? This is actually, swooping is another really good one. Like us on a 90 can usually out swoop most people on a 270 because we can keep the energy going, right? Not everybody, but a lot of people, right? Because if you don't manage the energy right. And so again, what you want to do is you want to learn that wing, you want to learn that thing, and you want to just hammer it and hammer it and hammer it until you've gotten as much out of it as you can. Then you go to the next thing, go to the next thing, go to the next thing. And that's what keeps speed flying. That's why we're still doing it after all these years. If you approach it like that, it keeps it fun, it keeps it interesting, right? It's not just how close, like how much can I scare myself, right? And did I scare myself to the point where I don't want to do that anymore? It's more like, okay, this like little discovery of this thing and that thing and this thing. So yeah, I think that's how we approach progression.
Yeah, and going back to what he's saying about getting hurt and watching people get hurt, or we could like know it was coming. And the number one thing we would look at, we could see a pilot and we could instantly know if they were going to get hurt, was their mentality, their thought process, and their way of thinking, and their way of talking about the way that they're flying and a way that they're going to progress. And so we could just tell. And we try to like slow people down and say, hey, you should look at it differently or whatever. And like we can look at each other and think they're going to get hurt. And sad but true. And progressing slower is a huge help in that. And just number one is mentality. A lot of people get hurt because they're flying when they're tired. So you always want to be in the right mindset to fly, and like know when not to go is like the best advice that we could give. Trust your gut. Actually, that happened to me in Switzerland last March. We go there every year for speed riding, and all the way up, my gut was screaming at me so loud. It's never done that before. I'm like, something's going to happen. And I got to the top and I looked at our friends and I said, hey guys, I'm not going to fly this lap. They're like, really? Why? I was like, my gut is screaming at me so loud that it hurts really, really bad. I was like, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to take the gondola down. And as soon as I said that, I felt 100% better. I wasn't sick anymore. And I just knew it was the right thing to do. They went and flew and it was fine, but I just knew it was not the time for me.
That's so
And you
interesting.
just got to listen to your body. Yeah. It
Yeah,
was really cool, like, to feel it. Yeah.
for sure. Yeah. So I gotta say a couple things about what you both just said. So um, the day before I broke my leg, I was sitting on the couch where I ended up sitting for 10 weeks the next day, on. And I literally thought without it was like a thought that wasn't a thought. It was like a subconscious thing. But I was like, man, it would really suck to have a broken leg right now and be on this couch. And the next day it happened. And the whole time
Oh,
I'm like I don't want to be flying today. But my friends were there, and it's rare that everybody's there. And we were just going off Airport Ridge. We weren't doing anything crazy, relatively.
right.
But then it happened, right? So had I just listened to
Uh,
that, my biggest thing in my life, throughout all the sports that I've done, and a lot of team sports, a lot of action sports, a lot of filming of action sports in dangerous environments, like swimming at Pipeline with a big cinema camera in Hawaii. I was doing that all the time, any swell, pretty much. Um, I had to convince myself every single time that I was ready for the conditions. Like I've always erred on the
mhm.
side of caution. So it's this like big internal dilemma with me where it's like I don't know if I'm just being scared like rationally or if it's irrational or if it's a gut thing. It's really hard for me to differentiate them. It's something I've struggled with forever with dangerous sports, not necessarily with like, normal stuff, but it's not like, hindering to my life. It's more just like, with the more risky activities, right? Um, so yeah, but I full on had that same experience. I just didn't listen to it the day before I broke my leg. So that's obviously with your experience and uh, all of the things that you've seen, you listened to that, and that's really cool. That's something that I think a lot of people probably wouldn't do, especially if you were, you know, in Switzerland on a gondola, with your partner, with your friends, like it, you're there, you're doing the thing, you don't live there, so that would be a really hard call. Um, so yeah, very interesting. Something too, Jared, I wanted to say is that I've never done a barrel roll and I've never done a
Good,
270. Um,
good,
yeah,
good.
I think I was kind of
There's
doing
time and place
180s.
for it.
I was kind of doing 180s with like a 15 after I had been flying the 11 for a while. And Todd was like, "Don't do that." He's like, "You're backing yourself into a corner. It's a terrible idea." It's like if you're going to turn
That's
bigger,
good.
at
Yeah.
least do a 270. Just do 90s. So I was like, "Cool. I'm just gonna do 90s." I even wrote it in
Awesome.
like my notebook, which is my logbook. I'm like, not doing 180s, doing 90s until I get to 1,000 flights or
Perfect.
something. It's in my book, but I'm very cautious. I never really. I mean, I have 400 flights, right? I I've done some flying
That's
around where I
nothing.
live, but for the most part, it's Airport Ridge. I think of the times that I have been out to Chelan, I might have flown Deer Mountain 5 times total. Like couple, two or three Dos Arbs, and maybe like two or three fligs. Maybe three and three, 4 and 3, whatever. But either way, under 10. It's always Airport Ridge, and I always looked at it as being like the safe. Like I used to say, this place is like padded. It's like learning in a foam pit as long as you don't touch the ground, because it's so steep and
It's a
it's
cool
sand
spot. Yeah.
and it's grass. I can, if I'm going downwind, huge swoop, then I'll just slide. Right.
Mm.
But it's kind of ironic that like that's where I got hurt because some of the places I've flown near me is like, rocky launch with like, crazy, desert shrubs that you can't see the rocks and there's like ruts and I mean ditches rather and like a whole bunch of crap that you just don't want to, step in the wrong way. Um, Not even a bruise anywhere else. It's like it's so ironic. But yeah, I mean, it just goes to show that it can happen anywhere. But
Yeah, and for sure, we're all rolling the dice every time we fly, to be honest with you. That's something that like people have to just like if you're in the sport, you have to understand that there are things that happen, right? But to your point, like, you know, you'll hear this a lot from folks that like complacency kills, right? And so the thing is, when you are somewhere where you think what's the worst that can happen? It's safe. You know what I mean? Sometimes, I'm not saying you did this, but sometimes people let their guard down, right? And that's when stuff happens, right? Either they're like, oh, I launch here all the time. There's always wind. I never check my wing. And then they have a really bad tension knot, right? And like, they're so used to it never happening, they don't care. Or there's something in an LZ that you don't notice. And we see this a lot at sand dunes. So down here by us, we do a lot of flying at the sand dunes, and people are like, it's sand, it's safe. It's not very soft when you hit it at 50 miles an hour, right? And a lot of times when you're speed soaring like we are, so there's this interesting thing with the wind, right? So oftentimes when the wind is strong, at least in our site, it's usually not very straight in. It's usually cross, right? And so when you're flying a small wing, or this happens, we see this a lot with newer pilots on parakites, the speed difference between upwind and downwind is pretty massive, right? So you're flying 20, 25 miles an hour one way, and then you turn around and now you're doing 50, right? 55 miles an hour because the wind is cross. And so your mind has to be ready for that, and you have to wrap around it. But the thing is, I'm telling you, if you hit sand at 50 miles an hour, it's going to hurt. You know what I mean?
We've seen a lot of broken backs, broken bones, it's like hitting concrete. And, a lot of people think, oh, I don't need a helmet, but you definitely need a helmet there.
Oh yeah.
So I think to your point, where you were saying where you're at now with all the changing conditions and stuff, again, you're probably at a different state of consciousness, right? You're thinking about that. You're like, okay, I don't know what's in my LZ, or I don't know. And so you're not complacent, right? You're actively thinking. And that's something that it's really hard to learn, to understand when you are being complacent, right? I still do it from time to time. Sometimes I catch myself. She catches me a lot. That's one nice thing about being a speed flying couple, right? Is that we can kind of call each other out. But yeah, complacency is one of those things. And when you get really, really comfortable with something, whether it's a sight, whether it's a wing, whatever, again, that's where you should just kind of stop, think about it, and just kind of be like, okay, I'm really comfortable with this. Like, I should probably either change a variable to take myself out of my comfort zone so that I can kind of look at it from another angle, right? Whether it's flying a different wing or, whatever, or you just need to recognize hey, I need to not be complacent and, make yourself do things. Pre-flights is one. I don't know if you all have talked about pre-flights, but again, all the flights that I have, I still do the same thing every time, right? Wing comes out of the bag, I check the trimmers, right? Every time. I check my lines, I clip in, right? I double check my lines again after that. I check my leg straps. I check my chest strap. I check my trimmers again. That's usually the last thing I do before I launch, right? And then I fly. And then when I land, every time I land, the first thing I do after I land, I close my trimmers, whether or not I open them. It's just, I do it. And these routines help me stay current, but I still actively think about them, right? It's kind of a mental checklist. Actually, in hang gliding, we hang glide as well. And in hang gliding, it's a verbal thing. And I haven't actually brought that to speed flying, but I'm kind of tempted to do it because in hang gliding, it kind of makes you do it, right? You don't just go through the motions. You literally say it out loud. And then again, if you're flying with other partners, if I'm not looking at my anything and I'm like, yeah, my helmet, you can be like, dude, no, actually check your helmet, you know what I mean? Or whatever. So yeah, that's, like I said, that's not something I do, but I do think it's an interesting thing to bring across.
Yeah. One of my buddies who's a pilot, has talked about making a checklist and just laminating it and just have it taped to him somewhere. And because he's
a lot of instructors do it.
I'm sure. Yeah. And you see it in paragliding.
Not necessarily printed out, but they have the A, B, C checklist that a lot of the new students I see say it out. I don't do that, but it's good to do.
Right. And I mean, we're not flying aircraft with lots of systems, I mean, an airplane's a little different because you got all the gauges and you got all the, there's a lot going on, right? It's a little bit more simple. But it is easy to be complacent when it comes to the pre-flight stuff. I've found that when I'm by myself, I verbalize things. I do it the same way. I stick one riser between my legs, and I run the lines, A, B, C, D breaks, make sure they're all clear. I try my best to lay it out perfectly. I've always been that way. But what I've noticed is that when I'm with people, I don't say it out loud. And if they're talking to me, I'm talking to them. So I'm not paying as close of attention. But it's this weird push and pull because I really want to be, but I also really want to talk to them. It's weird though, because with skydiving, when I was packing my rig, I wouldn't talk to anybody. I was packing my rig. So because the wing is already out, And, I mean, I'm just talking to like Airport Ridge, right? So like my home launch, I will just say, because that's where I've predominantly flown the most. On Flags, totally different story. I wasn't talking to anybody. I was like crapping my pants, literally, like making sure everything was perfect. Yeah, totally different situation. But it is easy to fall into complacency, and it's a spectrum. It's not like, when I leave the ground, I'm not paying attention necessarily. But it starts when you lay your wing out. It starts when you get there. It's not it doesn't have to be like 100% or zero. There can be a percentage. And I think it's all pretty dangerous. But like you said, though, it is easy to fall into, because if it's super routine, if it's the same wing and the same site and the same conditions and nothing is different, and you're not excited about it, but you're not, I mean, it's exciting, but you're not like fixated on something, or like, learning a new wing or flying at a new site or new launch, it's easy to like fall into the, well, I've done this 150 times, so why am I worried? You're not as worried. It's just human nature. Do you have any tricks to, like, I mean, do you guys have not like 10, what, 10, Bonnie, 10,000 flights? I mean, how many?
I'm about to break 12,000. Yeah.
That's amazing. And Jared, I mean, I'm assuming
Yeah.
you're not too far behind.
I am a little far
Well,
behind now. I'm
four
only about
years, right,
70,
behind, but
7,500.
4 years.
still,
Yeah.
still like a lot, right? But do you? I mean, so I'm veering off topic for a second here, but you mentioned earlier that you don't get bored, but like, have you ever found yourself getting bored? And then what do you do to combat that?
Well, bored isn't the right word for me, I guess, just because maybe the next thing I did when I moved here was got my tandem license, and we were just going to do it for fun to fly together. And the second I did it, I was laughing and having so much fun. I'm like, this is amazing. And then I wanted to do it commercially. And I thought that would make me like hate it because now it's my job. But I love it. I love doing tandems. And the more I can do them, the more I want to. So I never think, oh man, I have to go do a tandem or anything like that. So, but just the different aspects of it. So, I mean, a lot of people would think that we would easily get bored because we're ridge soaring. Like a lot of people call it ridge boring. Like, oh, that how do you do that back and forth every day? But for us here at this spot is special because every single day, every single hour is different. Like the wind changes, the density changes, everything's changing all at once, and you really have to pay attention to it because earlier in the day, like if I'm flying a couple hours, I launched this one direction, and then I'm coming into land later, a couple hours later after top landing and playing, and um, then all of a sudden it's changed 180 degrees. And so with that changing at our spot, that means different rotor, different lift bands, and it's more technical to stay up in different scenarios. So that makes it fun. Adding speed riding and speed flying later on and was super fun. So and then we're getting more and more into thermal flying too, and just adding different styles of it. Like you could go on forever. You're always learning. I'm 16 years in, I'm still learning. It's just super fun.
And I think for me, like I definitely have found myself in my speed flying career kind of getting bored at times, right? And it was because I was like literally just doing the same thing, right? And then I was like, I always take off and I always turn that way, right? Like, why do I go that way? What's over there, and so I just try to get myself out of it, right? Like, try to just do a different flight. And again, this is something, high flying, right? Like just taking off and cruising, right? Like, it's funny for me because, generally, even when we're ridge soaring, like Bonnie said, like speed flying, ridge soaring, whatever, I'm always like trying to like just have fun, like do what, do whatever kind of crazy thing I can, right? And then every once in a while, I'll just kind of like just have a chill flight. And like for me, those like that's when I find myself just giggling. I'm like, I can't believe I get to do this. You know what I mean? Like you're just like, and that's the thing. We have to remind ourselves. I think, to the point of like trying to get yourself out of it, like remind ourselves, it's amazing that we get to do this. And every flight is amazing, right? And so yeah, if you are finding yourself where it's like you're on a grind and you're like, oh, I'm trying to do this or oh, I'm trying to do that, and it's like it's not fun. Like I said, change it up. Change where you're flying, change what you're flying, change how you're flying, just change it up, right? And then all of a sudden it'll unlock this whole other thing. Like I said, the big thing I think a lot of us, especially you were saying, you have a whole bunch of flights, at Airport Ridge. We have hundreds and if not thousands off of our little hill here, right? You know, again, I try not to take the same line every time, right? Like I try to just like, okay, what if I just take off and fly all the way down as far as I can and then rip down that, right? Or like, oh, go this way or go that way. And yeah, so you're just trying to keep it interesting because I think boredom and complacency, I think, kind of go hand in hand, right?
Well,
Because when it is the same thing over and over and over, sometimes you're just going through the motion.
well, we're kind of spoiled to be saying this too, because flying is our passion. We love it. So we have a huge quiver and we can literally fly a different wing all the time. So
I've
we
heard
change
about
it
this
up and
quiver.
we get lucky and we just fly a different wing. We're like, oh yeah, this is cool. So we're very spoiled in that regard. But
Todd told me about you guys like a year ago. I just didn't know he was talking about you two, right? Because I've been following you guys for a while. He was like, yeah, I've got these friends, and he said your names, but I didn't put two and two together. He's like, they have this room in their house or this whole, I think he says, and this could be folklore, I might need you to clarify this, but he said like an entire wing of your house is dedicated to like speed wings and paragliders and mini wings and then like the hang glide stuff. Like how many wings do you have, and is it an actual like wing
that's a
of your
personal
house?
question. That's a personal question. But yes, we have a wing.
Well, it's a room, but we affectionately call it the wing.
Okay, so he didn't make that up.
We do have a room for all of our toys.
No,
I love that.
Yeah.
They didn't make it up, but we do kind of keep it on the down low how many we actually have, because it's kind of embarrassing. But
I will say though that
we have a spreadsheet.
If anyone here is interested in Little Cloud specifically, we do affectionately call the wing the museum because we have most of them.
Yeah.
So if anybody's ever interested in the wings and wants to come down to California, hit us up, come fly with us.
Yeah.
And you can fly all kinds of stuff. You can fly stuff from way back in the day. You can fly the modern stuff, whatever. But that's one of the things with us. We are a little bit nerds for these wings slightly. So we do have the museum.
Yeah, I mean, and we've flown a lot of different wings. We have a spreadsheet. We're pretty nerdy, but we have a spreadsheet showing every wing that we've flown. So we've flown over 140, 150, 160 different wings through our flying career.
Actually close to 200.
Wow.
He's close to 200.
Well,
and so
different
and then we found Little Cloud.
Oh, I'm sorry. Different
brands.
The same wing, but different size count for the different wing. Is that how you do it, or is it?
Yeah, we count that. Yeah.
Okay, I'm just curious because I'm like, are there 150 different speed wings out there? But you're talking like the gambit, like paragliding, speed flying, parakites.
Oh yeah,
yeah. That's really cool. I'm a nerd too.
So with that being.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, we have to track everything. Yeah, I mean, with that being said, like we've flown it all, and then we've found Little Cloud and to match our flying style, and like, we could talk about it all day, but it just fits so well for us. Everybody's different; they have different styles, but we love just how safe they are, and but we have a room full of other gliders too. So probably, if I were to guess, I would say 70%. Or maybe more, 80% are Little Cloud, but we do have others as well.
That's cool. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. It makes sense, but I think what I have been searching for is like the Spiro line, because I want the sight picture of speed flying with the ability to fly in proximity. I know you can do it with full-size paragliders, but I'm terrified of going up. So I like smaller wings, in general, relatively smaller. But I don't necessarily want to be flying 80 miles per hour. So like those videos that I just saw, they're just fresh in my mind. That's why I keep referencing them. But from Speedfest, I'm like, that is exactly the kind of flying I want to be doing. It's like you're proxy flying, you're being super active, but you still have a lot of margin, and you're not like, your hair is not on fire, but you're not flying slow. I mean, it's like this fine. It just looks more like a dance that I can wrap my head around versus watching, people bombing canyons going 100 with a 6 meter, 5.9 meter, whatever. I don't see myself doing that, but I do see myself flying the way that you guys were flying at, Air Sports Chelan. Like that's kind of what speaks to me. Obviously, it doesn't speak to everybody. And this isn't about me. I'm just being honest. I was very inspired by that. And that is kind of like the direction I want to go versus just, launching Airport Ridge, making a couple turns, opening my trim, doing a turn and swooping, because like that was what I was doing, right? But I did it for a reason. It was like I'm gonna do 1,000 launches and 1,090s before I start taking this to bigger mountains. That was like my goal, and I was on track to do that within a calendar year. But then I missed basically 8 months of, the year, um, through work. That was part of it, and then also the 4 months I've been off with the leg injury. So um, that obviously, has been pushed to the right a little bit, but that was my intention. It was like, let's get really good at launching and landing before I start doing more extreme stuff.
That's the
'Cause
way to
I'm
do
not
it, man.
not a
I
huge
wish
fan of
everybody
people
would do
with.
that.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, right. Me too. Me too. It's I know that
And
people are, but I'm 33. I'm not 18. I think if I found this at 18, probably would have a little bit different approach. But at
we're
33,
glad we didn't.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I also, I'm hats off to the 18-year-olds out there shredding. I just hope that they, are within their margins of safety. That's my hope, right? And maybe not. That's not everybody's, but I've seen some videos. I'm like, man. Then I'm like, how long has this guy been flying? Oh, 6 months. Okay, check. Like, not very long. That's impressive, but terrifying now. More so terrifying. I'm not calling anybody specifically out. I'm just generalizing
Right.
here. But yeah. So, do you have any advice for? I'm sorry, Jerry. Were you gonna chime in there before I?
Well, I was just gonna say, like, as we said, I think the way you're approaching it is the way that we like to approach it. I will say that you are lucky, we are lucky. Not everyone has the opportunity where they can just do laps, right? So there are a few places in this country where you can go do that, right? Air Sport Chelan is one of them. Saboba is another. Southside up at Point of the Mountains another. And like, again, it's a very, very valuable skill because we've traveled with folks, and there were parts of their flying that they were nervous about. In this particular case, it happened to be the landing, right? Where they were really, really nervous about landing. And it was just in their head because every flight, as soon as they were in the air, they were thinking about the landing, right? And so they couldn't really enjoy the flight. And I happened to mention to this person, I said, hey, look, go to Saboba, knock out 10 landings a day, right? Like just do it, do it over and over and over until you're comfortable with it. Try different approaches, do all your stuff, like get that fear out of there. And that particular pilot, said back to me, I'm not going to learn anything there. And I was like, okay, but I think that's just, not everyone's that lucky, but if you are that lucky, take advantage of it. And if you're not that lucky, spend some time, put some time into the sport. This is one of those things where, again, you can get away with a lot, right? So like you're saying, you want to make sure that you're dialed before you go do big mountains. Again, I will tell you, I went and I flew some big mountains before I should have. And I got away with a couple of them, and one of them I should be dead. Because I fucked up a launch really badly, and somehow I was okay. But I did that too early, and I got lucky in the fact that it didn't slow me down because I didn't actually really get that injured. But yeah, so like taking that approach is really good. And even for us, so we speed ride as well, but I do it 2 weeks a year, right? 2 weeks a year I'm on skis, and I've been doing that for 13 years. So every time we go, like we don't go straight to crazy, right? Every time we go to Europe, we go to, a spot where we can just do laps, right? And we spend a day or two just doing laps, like just get our ski launches dialed again, get our ski landings dialed again, over and over and over. And again, after 10 plus years, and again, thousands, I probably have a few thousand speed riding flights. I still do that because I do it 2 weeks a year. So what am I? I'm nothing, right? Like even though I have all that stuff, I'm not, especially compared to somebody who's living in Europe and doing this day in, day out.
It's so different too when you strap skis on. I mean, it's like a whole other wing. It's multiple surfaces that are catching wind and affecting basically how you're flying. I love speed riding. It's so much fun. I've been skiing since I was 3, so I once I figured out how to fly a canopy over my head, and I have like 5 speed riding laps, like because it's not legal here, and I'm a ski patrolman at
You
a
got to go to
resort, and
Europe.
I got kind of like a wink and a nod, like you're good, but like not when we're open. So as soon as we closed, I was going up there and, you know, basically ripping some laps, but very chill. But I envy the zones in Europe where like you could do 30 in a day, and it's like this huge meadow
You
that's
got to
just
go. You're going to love
barely
it.
steep enough to get off the ground, but you can. And then, oh man, I would do that every day if I had the ability to. If we had the ability in the U.S. to do it, I would. That would be like the thing. So maybe someday, maybe the podcast blows up and the sport becomes super popular and there's money in it and resorts see that and they see the tangible, they're the benefits that they can, reap from us, crazy people. Maybe it'll exist in the US. I mean,
It's possible. We could all just get together and buy a mountain. That's what we talked about. But
I mean that's probably more realistic than getting one of the major, resort conglomerates to get on board with this. But they used to, right? So I used to ski patrol at Snowbird in Little Cottonwood Canyon in Utah.
Cool.
And like I think either, I don't know, it was like 2012, 13, 14 timeframe. But I remember like seeing people speed riding down Mount Superior, which is just across the street. And I didn't have a concept of what it was because it was still fairly new. And, I was getting into skydiving, but I wasn't aware of speed flying. Like I saw Southside, I saw people floating around, but I didn't put two and two together that there was like other disciplines. Because had I found that out, I would have for sure gone and learned and gotten, at least gotten, some training. But anyway, Alta used to allow people to launch off of Mount Baldy, which is like the ridge line between Alta and Snowbird. It's a peak between the two. And you could fly down to the parking lot. You just had to be like 150 feet off the ground. So I used to watch paraglide pilots do it. But they got rid of that, I think, because someone like hit somebody. It was like a big deal. It wasn't on our side, it was on theirs. I'm not even sure if I was there for that. But I mean, what I'm saying is I don't know if I was working there or not when that happened, but it was a big bummer, right? So there have been moments where it's been allowed. It's just it hasn't been like nailed down yet as like an actual thing. Is it different in Europe?
There's
Like,
a few, yeah,
yeah,
100%. So there's a few in the US that'll let you launch and land, but you can't ride. You can't stay on the snow, and that's the fun part.
right.
That's where you're gonna love it because you love to ski. So go to Europe and do it. You'll be amazed.
I will say though, like in both places, right? So again, like one piece of advice I like to give people is don't go fuck up somebody else's site, right? So whenever you're a visitor, like the worst thing that you can do is mess a site up. And so like here in the US, there are a few places, and I actually don't know where they are now. But in the past, I have launched and landed a few different ski resorts. None of them you can do that anymore. But I do know there's a handful right now, and the folks that are working on making that happen are putting a lot of blood, sweat, and tears effort into that, right? And so, like again, going somewhere that allows it, if you're gonna do it, like follow the rules, even if it sucks. Even if you're like, oh man, like, oh, it'd be so cool if I could just fly over there. Like, again, you're a visitor, don't do that, right? And then other places that don't allow it, like when people just send it, the chances of us ever getting it just get worse and worse every time that happens, right? So again, it sucks that we can't really do it here in the U.S. But again, if we do get organized and we do put the legwork in, I think it can happen. It's never going to be at somewhere like Snowbird. I wish it was, but like you said, there's no money in it for them, right? But the smaller resorts and that sort of thing, I think there is a chance. We just have to do it. And then to the flip side of that is we're telling you to go to Europe. We're telling everybody to go to Europe. It's amazing, but same thing. So when you go to Europe, you're a visitor, right? And they do have their rules.
Get the training.
Yeah. Meet up with the local pilots, ask them questions, get the rundown, fly with them, get their knowledge, and approach it like you are there to learn, because you are there to learn. It's not a spot you've been before. It's not something like that. And these things do change from year to year to year. So like I said, we've been going for 10 plus years. Still every year I check in with the locals. Where can I launch? Where can I land? What's allowed? Has anything changed? Because it does. Things happen. But yeah, Europe is an absolute playground that everyone who's speed flying at some point in their career should go. But don't rush it, right? Don't go before you're ready, because you're going to spend a lot of money and you're not going to get much out of it, right? So again, put in that training, get that level, right? And then go over there and you can do it. And I get one other last piece of advice I'll give with that. Like we said it earlier, you were saying like, oh man, if I was in Europe and I knew it was my time to do something, I might just want to do it. That's the other piece of advice I give folks when they go to Europe, especially in the beginning. You're young, right? Most of us are young. You're gonna go more than once, right? You do not have to squeeze a lifetime's worth of flying into one trip. And if you get hurt, that was a very expensive trip, right? And so, yeah, that's the thing. Like, approach that. Like I said, I go 2 weeks a year. I'm super lucky. I go 2 weeks a year every year, right? But the thing is, if you're on that trip, hopefully it's not your only trip. Don't make it your only trip, I guess is what I should say, right? Like, go there, do what you can do. If it works out, it works out. If it doesn't work out, you come back, right? And don't make those decisions that can really ruin a trip.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, I agree, right? Like, why would it be? You're already there, so why would it be your only time that you can go? You're going to be able to go in the future, right? Most likely. Yeah, if I could go right now, I would just hit the speed riding bunny slope for like a week and just do like 300 laps, and just be, that's
It's
obviously
so
not
funny.
realistic, but you know what I
funny.
mean? Like, that's what I want, right?
You could
I
be
like,
close. You could do 20 to 30 a day.
oh, that's amazing. Yeah. I mean, part of me wishes that the sport was like vert skateboarding, where like you got the ramp indoors, it's the same every day. You clean it, it's not going to throw anything weird at you. But then the other part of me is like, there's something really cool about the fact that like it's never the same, and you can't expect perfect conditions all the time. So you were talking earlier about how your site there where you live is it varies, like it's just so different all the time, hour to hour, right? That's really cool because it keeps you on your toes, it makes you a better pilot. um but like I said, there's a flip side of me that's like, man, I wish I could just do like 1,000 of these a day, and it like not be that big of a deal, right? But then it wouldn't be the same thing. So there's, I don't know, it's amazing that you have the numbers that you have in the amount of time that you have, even though we're talking about 15 years, 12 years, if my math is right, 16 years. It's still like, that's a lot of time, and 10,000 flights is a lot of flights, but it's still like, like I'm sure there has been plenty of days in those 16 years where like you couldn't fly even though you really wanted to. I mean,
Yeah.
correct me if I'm wrong, but
Yeah, no. I mean, and then, we started flying smaller and smaller little clouds and stronger wind. But when we get strong wind here, it's not very clean. It's not smooth. And, we were kind of trying to push it when we shouldn't. And we kind of backed down and realize, like, hey, it's not even worth it. Like, tomorrow's going to be better. Like, let's just fly later. So we always say fly another day. Don't force the conditions. There were a few accidents this summer at our spot, and a lot of the accidents had to do with one common denominator is trying to force the conditions. And the wind was cross. It was either too light and too cross, or too strong and too cross. And and what after the really strong day, like the rest of the summer was like one of the best summers we've had here, and it was like really, really good. And I'm glad I didn't try to force it and fly that day. And we just there'll be better days. Like, you don't have to fly a day.
right, there's nothing worse than being in the air wishing you were on the ground. I'd rather be on the ground wishing I was in the air if the flip was, being in the air. There's only been a few instances in my life where I was in the air wishing I was on the ground. One, I was flying a Cessna 152, I think. First solo flight, I think I was like 17. I was pretty young, and it was super turbulent, and I was just like freaking out. Managed it fine, got on the ground, did the pattern, landed, it was fine, but it scared the crap out of me. Another time was skydiving,
Were
and like, oh,
I was just going to ask, were there signs that day that you could have recognized, or were you forcing it, or were you like,
oh,
do you
in the
think looking
Cessna,
back, do you think you could have, yeah,
uh,
or was it just extra
really,
turbulent that you didn't really expect it?
I think it was external pressure, actually. Just a little bit, just because I was. It's a really long story, but I'll just give you the spark notes. So like, I ended up going to school for aviation commercially, for like a year. This was later though; it was a couple of years later. But my dad was a military pilot, and then got his, civilian side commercial rating, and then instructor ratings, on the side. So I started flying with him when I was young, like whatever the legal age
Mhm.
was, like 13 or 14 or whatever, go up. And
Mhm.
um and then I didn't, like I said, I've always been on the side of caution. So my 17-year-old self was like, I don't know if I want to take an airplane up by myself, even though I had like, I was fine, I was current, I had all the experience I needed, I had done all the stuff, checked all the boxes and had way more flight hours than most do when they do their first solo. And then yeah, it was just kind of one of those, like, you're ready, you can do it. And that's kind of why I did it. I'm not blaming my dad or the other guy that I was kind of working with a little too, a different instructor, but I don't think I was ready, and I think that's why I freaked out a little bit. And it was all internal. I still had to fly the plane. I was by
Mhm.
myself, so I didn't have a choice, right? But yeah, I mean, it definitely, that stuck with me. I'm like, okay, I don't necessarily want to relive this feeling of being in the air when I want to be on the ground. Yeah, and then I had like an experience skydiving, super turbulent in Hawaii. Super windy day. I was flying like a Sabre 2 170 is big canopy, really light wing loading, and I was flying backwards, like trying to come down. That was terrifying. Um, and then only one time speed flying I've been in the air where I didn't want to be, and it was with the line on a northeast day at the ridge. It was pretty strong, and the turbulence was outrageous. And I was like, pretty. I mean, I don't have a ton of flights on the line, regardless. Like 40, like I said, so not a lot of experience. Regardless, that's like, that's not even something to talk about. It's like just no
And
experience.
definitely not soaring it.
No, but it was, the wind was coming the wrong way. It was like coming over the back.
Mm.
So I think I like caught like a weird cycle and was able to launch. But and all the guys were there. I was just the first one that went, and I landed. I think they saw that I was bouncing around. I landed. I'm like, do not fly. Like, do not put your wings away. Like, it's
Mhm.
just terrible. I just bounced around. I understand active piloting. But I was super new with the line, and it's so different. Parakites are so different, and you just want to, like, especially the skydiver in me, I just want to punch through it. So I'm like, I want to go hands up, but like, you don't want to go hands up. So it was just like kind of a battle, but landed, it was fine. But I was like, man, that was not fun. It was not fun. So yeah, it's never good to push it when the conditions aren't lining up. I'm curious though. So you started your flying career in Hawaii. Did that get you really comfortable with flying in strong wind? Do you think that's why you like it still, or like what kind of pushed you in the
Yeah, I think
solo?
so.
Yeah, it
I
makes
think
sense.
so. But also, like, Hawaii's no joke. Like, it's strong and it's cliff launches and it's small landings. And I got away with a lot. Like, wh- I shouldn't have made, I should be dead. I got away with a lot, but finally, like 3 years in, I had a mentor, and he was like, "Look, your ground handling is not good. You need to learn how to kite. You need to know how to control your wing. You're just pulling the wing up, and you're getting plucked off a launch. You're launching when you shouldn't be. You're not ready. You're not in control." And I was like, "Okay, will you help me?" And so I spent every day with my mentor, every day on the beach for at least an hour, and we were like at Kahana, we were skiing up and down because it would be really windy down there too. We could put our wings on the side and ski through the sand, and it was just a really fun. It was a different sport. I was like, wow, this is amazing. I didn't know kiting was fun. Like, I thought it sucked. I didn't know how to do it. I was terrible at it. But then once I started understanding it and being able to play with it and making it like this whole nother realm, it made it really fun. So I had at least an hour before, and then I would hike up and go fly for an hour to two, and then I'd land and kite some more. So I got a lot of experience kiting in strong wind, and I got really comfortable. And then just being able to downsize as well, and being able to, you know, to do that and fly in it and be in control has been a really fun progression for me.
It's
But
cool.
yeah, Little Cloud changed that for me because they're trimmed a little bit faster. So I even like the full size 21 meter that I started on, I could still fly it in stronger winds when other people couldn't, and so that changed a lot for me. And then again, like I mentioned earlier, just then they started making smaller wings, like a 19-meter Mega Goose and then a 16-meter Super Goose, and um, that that was it for me. Like that was that was key.
Yeah, it is amazing how they handle wind so well. I mean, it's like, I'm obviously, like I said earlier, I haven't flown low cloud wings yet, although I do want to change that. But I
Mhm.
noticed, like, with the line, I could ground handle that thing in like 30 knots of wind, and it was still, 30 knots is a lot, but I would never bring out a 13 meter of anything else. in that kind of wind. And that thing it's just so easy. And I'm assuming the technology is very similar with Little Cloud, just
Definitely, yeah.
shark nose. And they have reflex, or how actually, this is probably a good opportunity. Can you dive into Little Cloud a little bit and just talk about the wings and the differences? I know it's nuanced, but um whatever you want to,
Yeah.
whichever wing you
No,
want to dive in.
It's Jared's favorite thing to do. So.
Yeah,
yeah, how much time
perfect.
do we have?
Perfect.
No, yeah. So, I will talk about the wings, but I just want to call one quick thing that you said,
Sure.
which is that you were able to bring up that wing in a lot of wind that you wouldn't expect to do on another wing. And for anyone watching this is that what you just called out is the danger of parakites, the absolute danger of parakites, and the fact that it used to be. So before, again, like I said, we're all in the golden age right now. We all have great equipment, right? So it used to be back in the day, if you wanted to fly in strong winds, you had to get your wing over your head, right? There's a skill set that comes with that, and you weren't going to go from soaring in 10 miles an hour to soaring in 30 miles an hour. You would get your ass kicked. We've seen it many, many, many times, right? And so you had to kind of go through the motions because you had to learn the skills. You had to get the correct wing. You had to do a lot of things in order to get there. And so by the time you were flying in 25, 30 mile an hour wind, you were ready for it. And with Parakite, they're amazing pieces of technology, but we see that a lot. People are flying in wind where they can get the wing over their head and they can launch. But now you're in the air. Now you're in the air in 30 miles an hour, right? Or 35 miles an hour, right? And like what I was talking about with crosswinds and all that kind of stuff, ground speed, rotor, all these things, if you don't have the experience of what's going on there, then you are basically putting yourself at the, hey, wing saved my life, right? Which again, we talked about the luck bucket and the skill bucket. They're great wings, right? They are saving people's lives. People are getting away with a lot of stuff, but they are not invincible, right? And so even with all these wings and stuff, it would behoove a lot of people to build that skill set very, very slowly. Just because you can bring the wing up at 30 miles an hour does not mean that you should fly in 30 miles an hour. You can kite at 30 miles an hour, go for it. Make sure you're not going to get plucked or drugged or slammed or whatever, right? But yeah, so definitely with that one, like, take a little bit of caution. But so now I'll jump back.
I'll add to that I mean, I just spoke about it. Like ground handling is key. And for some reason, it's the fundamentals of the sport. For some reason, everybody skips it. And, I want to get more instructors into like teaching ground handling. And because you can't just teach yourself. Because when you go to ground handle, you're going to go and you're going to put it over your head and you're going to stare at it like this. And you're going to be like, I'm ground handling.
Right.
And, a sack of potatoes can do that. Like you want to be able to move around and twist your hips. It's all in the hips and people don't understand that. Move it from side to side, give it some energy, pull some collapses and just feel it, learn the stall point. And that's key for understanding all this. And that changed. I was 3 years in, that changed my flying tremendously. Like I understood the glider more and I could control it better. I felt better in the air. And it's like, oh, I'm understanding this on the ground where it's safe. And it is so key, especially I would say in speed flying because the wing is so small, everything happens so quickly. There's no room for error at all. If you don't know your stall speed and you pull one side and you spin stall it, you're shit out of luck. Like you're gonna hit. There's no
Before you
recovery
even know
from
what
that.
happened,
You
even
need
a
to understand
bigger
that.
speed
Yeah.
wing. Yeah. No, I agree.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a
100%. Yeah.
huge advocate of ground handling. I love it. And I think it's because I was surrounded by people in Hawaii that were really good speed pilots that would not let me go to the launches. I mean, I can go look, but you're not
It's
bringing a
good.
wing. And two, because I was in Hawaii when I started, my path this, down the speed flying world. And the only thing I was going to do was ground handle because that was all I could do. So, and I
Yeah.
fell in love with it. I mean, I was terrible at it, right? And from my
Mm-hmm.
perspective, that is why new pilots don't do it because it is hard. And that's what you said. Like, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's easy to get it over your head sometimes in the right conditions, right? And you can just stand there, but that's not what you're talking about. You can do like
Mm-hmm.
so much stuff. You can do everything that you could do in the air on the ground to an extent, right? I mean,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
it's an incredible tool. And I do think it's overlooked a lot, which is
And
a huge bummer. But
with that being said, I've been mentoring people have been asking me to help mentor them and I'm passing on that favor that my mentor gave me and I love helping others. When I love it when someone asks me, "Hey, can you help me kite?" Absolutely.
Sorry.
Hello, kitty. Um So yeah, I love helping. So if anyone wants to reach out and ask me for tips on ground handling, I'm happy to help.
Awesome. I love that.
Cool. So let's talk about the wings a little bit if you want.
Yeah, sure.
So yeah, so Little Cloud, right? Tom started making these wings in I think 2008 or 2009, somewhere around there.
Okay.
And he came from the kite surfing world. He was designing kite surfing kites and that sort of thing. And he was learning to paraglide, and he was flying a very big wing, as everyone does. He just didn't feel comfortable on it, right? And around that time, there were some smaller paragliders, right? There wasn't really a concept of a mini wing, but there were smaller paragliders that were really built for like hike and fly racing and that sort of thing. It wasn't very common. Kind of back in those days, if you needed a high wind wing, you just got the smallest paraglider and, added sand, and that was that, right? And so Tom was flying a big wing, and he just wasn't comfortable. And he was like, you know what? I want to fly something where I feel comfortable. And so, having his background designing kite surfing kites, he built his first mini wing, the Spearline. It was actually a 14 meter. He lived in Annecy in France at the time, and he went out and thermaled it. Right. He said he got a lot of looks because he would just rip right up the core, and everybody's like, what the hell is that? Where is that? What is that? Right. And it was just what was comfortable for him. Right. He just was like, I like wing loading. I like pressurization. So that's where it all started. It's gone through many, many, many iterations. Little Cloud has, kind of defined what a mini wing is, right? And so, our kind of, standard mini wing is the Spearline, right? And, there are a lot of manufacturers that are building something like the Spearline, right? So, there's pretty much any manufacturer has a mini wing like that. And again, just for folks that aren't really as knowledgeable, from my perspective, the difference between a mini wing and a speed wing generally has to do with aspect ratio and cells, right? So speed wings generally tend to be low 3 aspect ratio, sometimes under 3, the really square ones, maybe up into the high 3s, and they have 20, maybe low 30 cells, kind of somewhere in that range, right? When you start getting into the mini wing sort of thing, you're talking high 3 aspect ratios up into the mid 4s. Now the high 4s is becoming pretty standard, right? And cells in like the high 30s, somewhere in that kind of range. They tend to have, because of the aspect ratio, they tend to have slightly longer lines, right? So yeah, that's kind of the difference between the two. And so, for us, we have the Spearline, and the Spearline is a very traditional mini wing. All Little Clouds do have a little bit of reflex. Reflex now is, the kind of buzzword, right? Everybody's talking about it. I think Benny just did a big post about what it is, and I think, some of that was right. But when you get into the nitty gritties with wing designers, it's all, kind of squinting and yeah, maybe. But the reality is what reflex is meant to do, right? Or at least my understanding of what reflex is meant to do, right, is that you're basically shifting the center, or you're shifting the lift towards the front of the wing, right? And so like if you're kiting a parakite and you go hands all the way up, you'll notice that your A lines are taut, and then your B's are a little bowed, your C's are more bowed, your brakes are very bowed, right? So you're basically flying on the A's in a wing with a whole lot of reflex. And so with Little Cloud wings, they've always had a little bit of reflex in them. That's one of the reasons they're fairly stable. But they're designed to be fairly performant, right? And when we talk about a Spearline, we call it the go-kart, right? If you come from a full-size paraglider, that thing is going to feel like a speed machine, right? You're going to be like, what is this thing? Like I turn my head, it turns, right? It's going to feel really fast, really, really reactive. If you're coming from a speed wing, it's going to feel kind of slow initially, right? Again, size for size, the Spearline actually would be like, well, actually, it's not quite as reactive as my speed wing, right? It's very precise, very, very, very kind of fun handling. And the Spearline, it's kind of like I said, very standard, simple construction mini wing, right? There's not a lot of tricks to it, right? It's just kind of your standard mini wing. And then, we get into the Puffin. And the Puffin, no one else makes the Puffin. The Puffin is a very, very unique mini wing. It's more like a mini paraglider than a mini wing. So now we're getting up into higher aspect ratios. So it's about 5.35 in that one. And many more cells. So it's like high 40 cells. that thing starts to be a lot more performant, and it has, the shape of it's a little different. It's got more swept tips and all that kind of stuff. And that's what gives it that efficiency. So if we take like a spear line and we fly that, and then we take pretty much the exact same size puffin, the puffin's going to have better glide, better penetration into the wind. It's going to be a bit more rolly and reactive. And yeah, so in terms of those wings, like when we talk about little cloud and mini wings, again, it's kind of, when you fly a wing from another manufacturer, it is very much inspired by the Spearline. I'm not saying they're a copy of the Spearline. They're all doing different things. They're all trying different stuff, but it's very much inspired by it. And then the Puffin is like, if you want like the essence of like a very high performance mini wing, that's it. But the cool thing about Little Cloud, one of the things that we love about it, is that they come in a massive range of sizes, right? And so again, how do you fly? Okay, so the smallest puffin now is a 14. There used to be smaller ones, but how do you fly a 14 puffin? You start on a 19, right? Even if you fly a 16-meter mini wing, you start on a 19 puffin because it's going to react very, very differently, right? And it's just going to fly very, very different because it's just a different style of wing. There's really nothing like it. And to address a few things, there are folks out there. Most of them have not flown a Little Cloud or have not flown a Little Cloud recently. That will talk about, they collapse all the time and this sort of thing, right? And especially now, that's a big thing with parakites and with reflex wings and all that kind of stuff of like, they won't collapse. So the thing is that any ram air canopy is going to collapse, even a skydiving canopy, right? You put that thing in enough rotor, it's going to collapse,
I've
right?
done it. Yep.
Yeah, and it's no fun, huh?
No. At least I had a reserve, I didn't need it, but yeah, but I've definitely had a 50% collapse really close to the ground in Hawaii with a skydiving canopy. But yeah, different story.
Yeah, that's scary.
Please continue. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no worries. So in that particular instance, you hear that a lot, and the reality is that like our wings are designed in a way where they have a lot of energy, right? And so the thing with a lot of energy is that you have to do something with that energy, right? And that's why they pop back up. That's why they're very reactive on the roll axis and that sort of thing. And the thing is, when a ram air canopy collapses, right, how it recovers is what's important. And this is, when you talk about paragliders, right, this is like the ratings, right? You have A, B, C, D. A lot of that is based on collapses. I mean, there's other things in it. There's spiral recovery and stall recovery and all that kind of stuff. But oftentimes what makes a wing, one category or another is how it responds to a collapse, right? And so the thing is, when you design a wing, right, and you push that wing, you push the envelope of that wing to the point where it does not collapse until it has built a lot of energy, right? Then when it collapses, you have to deal with that energy. And that's where you get wings that either rotate, spiral, do all kinds of crazy, crazy stuff, right? And, with that sort of thing, if you're lucky, it opens away from the terrain. If you're really lucky, it doesn't rotate, whatever, but it's kind of roll the dice. And so for our particular wings, they're designed in a way where, yes, they will, like the tips will go like this, you know what I mean? And that freaks some people out, right? But the reality is what it's doing is it's dissipating energy, right? And it's making sure that these wings are not designed to the absolute limit, right? And so what that does is it keeps the wing safe. So yeah, it'll talk to you a little bit. And usually what that means is, hey, the air's kind of shitty. Maybe you should land. You know what I mean? And you don't end up pushing through it like you were talking about the day that you flew on your line, right? Like, you have the foresight and the wherewithal to be like, oh, this air sucks, I'm going to land, right? But again, that does come with experience. You've flown there a lot. It's not supposed to be like that, right? But somebody who's new and does a flight and lands and they're like, okay, that's how it is here. You know what I mean? And they go back up and they fly again, right? Because they're not really understanding what the air mass is doing. And so for our wings, like what they have in the past a little bit gotten a rap for is that little collapsy stuff. And it's really not that big a deal. I mean, I will tell you, I've got 1,600 hours, right? And of those 1,600 hours, a lot of them are here on the coast. And a lot of them are in really strong, and when people hear that, they'll say, okay, you're not flying in turbulence. Trust me, when you're speed soaring, it is freaking turbulent, right? And so, I have taken many collapses, right? I have never had one do anything more than go, whoop. That's it. You know what I mean? And usually when that happens, I go, I should land.
Right.
Right? Like I probably should not be flying right now.
Right.
You know what I mean? So yeah, so that's kind of our thing. But in terms of the actual like design, as I said, we are building wings that are really, they're meant for the joy of flying. So you will not see anything pushed to the limit. You will see wings that are very, very fun. And again, for their size, for the category, yes, we have very performant wings, the Puffin being one of them, right? But they're not ever pushed so far that they're into the realm of dangerous, right? And there are some wings that do that, right? And they get a bad reputation. And even in those conditions, I tend to take a step back because I always tell everybody there's practically no such thing as a bad wing. There are bad wings. I'm not going to call them out. And most of the modern wings are not bad wings, right? But there's almost no such thing as a bad wing. But there are bad pilots, right? And there are bad conditions. And if you take a good wing and give it bad conditions, it's not the wing's fault. And if you take a good wing and give it a bad pilot, it's not the wing's fault, right? And the interesting thing for us is that, I give it like something like the Puffin, right? Which everyone at some point in their life should try because it's an amazing wing. But, with the Puffin, I do consider it to be like a sports car, right? Like a Ferrari or something, right? And you don't give a Ferrari to a 16-year-old. And then if the 16-year-old crashes the Ferrari, you don't blame the Ferrari, right? The 16-year-old shouldn't have been flying the Ferrari. Or driving the Ferrari, I guess. They definitely shouldn't have been flying the Ferrari. But yeah, so that's kind of the thing about our wings, right? Is that, we build wings for fun, right? And, they're really just about the pure enjoyment of flying. And yeah, we have a full range of them, right? We have everything from kind of on the more docile side of mini wings to very advanced mini wings. Same in the paraglider category, right? We have everything from very docile paragliders to like cross country, super super fun paragliders.
7.5 aspect, 7 aspect.
Yeah. That's hard to imagine. Wow, that is a very very high aspect ratio. That's wild. Yeah, that's really cool. No, I'm glad that you dove into that a bit because I think it is important. Like obviously hearing it from the source, right? It's important. And having never flown a little cloud, I can honestly say that if I've talked to 10 people, like a few of them have a negative thing to say, but most people have a positive thing to say. It's just the negative people for some reason are loud. I don't know, and that's not just about Little Cloud. It's just in general, right? Usually, like negative stuff is louder, but the rest of the people are like that's all they want to fly because they're so fun, and it's super cool. But
yeah, I mean, it's not for everybody, and it's baby steps. Like a lot of people think, oh, I fly a 9 or 11. I want to fly that in the same size as a Little Cloud, and it's totally different. You need to upsize and understand energy management and get there. A lot of people jump on something too small too soon. They're not ready, they get hurt, and that's how it gets a bad rep too. You have to learn the energy management and take the proper steps to get there.
Right.
So when you're ready to fly one, they're great. But you can also learn on them and take the baby steps, and they're super safe that way too.
Sure. And like you said, Jared, I mean, it's not the wing's fault when the pilot makes the mistake or when they jump the gun and get a small one when they should be flying, they should be flying a 16, but they're flying a 10. Like that's not the wing's fault. I mean, it's, yeah, you said it beautifully.
Or opening the trimmers in thermic conditions and taking a huge collapse and not understanding why. I mean,
right.
That's you asked it to do that. You move the wing slow in turbulent conditions when it needs to have energy management. So that's another thing that's a lot of people don't understand our trimmers. And, a lot of people are switching to parakites now. So trimmers are kind of out, but we know someone who had an accident trying to launch with their trimmers open because the wind was too strong. And it took a collapse because it's changing the angle of attack. It's susceptible to collapse. And bam, hit the mountain or the cliff, whatever. And I'm like, that's the number one rule is don't launch with your trimmers open. And this can be an argument for a lot of people, but it's a tricky situation because, like I said, it is more susceptible to a collapse and it's vulnerable, if you will, and it needs energy management when the trimmers are open and not flying at a slow speed.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, especially with the way the wings are now, right? I mean, there would never be a time where you would want to launch with them open. Maybe, maybe the Fraser, back, Fraser 1 or something, maybe it would come up over your head a little better if you opened the trim. I was
I can
playing
see
with
that, yeah.
Fraser 3 just on flat ground at Speedfest, like the Thursday before, and I couldn't get it to get over my head on flat ground, right? Like no wind, it was just running.
The
And I'm
Phaser
like,
is notorious for that.
right. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to try this, and opened it up, and it kind of came a little. So maybe there was a time and place, right? Maybe. But now there's no need. I mean, of course, I try not to speak in absolutes, but I cannot see a reason why you would want to launch with trim open, because like you said, it does change the angle of attack and makes it more vulnerable or more susceptible to frontals, right? Which is like the opposite of what you want. So, especially on a launch. But
yeah,
I want to be respectful of your
going
guys'
to the
time.
thing.
But I'm sorry. Go on.
Oh.
No, I'm just saying. I want to be respectful of your time, but it is the internet, so we have plenty of time. What were you gonna say?
Well, I was just gonna say really quickly, going back to the Paragliding thing, right? So, when the mustache came out, that is a revolution, right? And everyone is kind of trying to figure out that style of flying. And one of the things that happened is actually Little Cloud very quickly came out with a set of kite risers for the Puffin that existed on the market, right? And in a similar vein, everybody was like, what are you doing? You can't do that, right? Like the wing wasn't designed for that. You absolutely positively can't do that, right? And the interesting thing was with the kite risers that we came out with for the Puffin was that basically all they were doing was flying the wing in the parameters of which it was designed. In other words, the trim range of the kite risers was exactly the same trim range as if you're using the trimmers of the speed bar, right? And so nothing changed about the wing. It didn't get more angle of attack than it had before, nothing like that. It flew very, very similar. And again, as I mentioned, all Little Clouds have always had a little bit of reflex in them, and everybody's like, it doesn't have reflex, but it does, not like a mustache does. But yeah, and so, that was an interesting thing for us for Little Cloud, was that, we were able to take a wing that existed, we were able to fly it in a new way, right? And then, so we do have those, and that is one of the cool things about, many of these existing Little Clouds, not necessarily the really old ones, right? But the more recent ones, you can put on kite risers, and you can have a totally different way of flying them. And then
it's like buying two wings for one.
Yeah, and then now our recent wings are designed specifically with those in mind, right? But also you can put regular risers on them, right? So you can fly them with regular risers, with kite risers, and yeah, it's very interesting because it has kind of like opened up a lot of things, right? And the interesting thing, like for me, as someone who flew these wings before, right? And then, when the kite riser stuff came out, we were some of the first people to buy mustaches. We flew them before they came out in Switzerland, and we came back and bought a set, and we flew them a bunch. I was like, wow, this is cool. It's really, really, really cool. But it's also what we were doing before, right? You know what I mean? And it's like, that's the really interesting thing, is that like, when you really learn to fly a wing, right? And when you really understand energy management, this comes with soaring or speed flying, right? When you really understand energy management, you can make the wing do all kinds of cool stuff, right? And so, yes, absolutely, like the profile of the mustache and the way the mustache works, like with that kind of stuff, like, yeah, I'm not saying I was doing exactly what the mustache could do, but, when you put kite risers on a wing that wasn't designed for it, and then you realize you can actually do most of those things, but you can also do those things without the kite risers when you understand energy management, right? One really cool moment in my life was many, many years ago. I was at the dunes and I was watching Jeremy fly a gyps, which is one of the 7-aspect paragliders, and he was on full speed bar, right? And he's flying along the ground. He's hauling ass. He's flying along the ground and he's flying on the rears, and he's basically kind of like, just like, again, like what you see people doing today, kind of like, following the terrain on a mustache. He was doing that on a paraglider. And then every once in a while, when he'd have a gap or whatever, he would pop off the speed bar, he'd shoot up in the air, he'd fly across the thing, and then he'd go right back down, right?
It's the same thing.
It's exactly the same thing.
Right.
Yeah. And so
it's just much easier.
Yeah, the kite risers. The kite risers make that stuff easier, right? But the cool thing is that like it's always been there. And when you learn to fly these wings and when you really understand energy management, then again, going back to what I was saying before about tools in the toolbox, kite risers are a tool in the toolbox, and they allow you to do stuff. But again, you don't need them in all cases. And even if you're not flying with them, when you understand how that works, you can do those things. You can do not exactly the same things, but you can do many of those things with your wing, and it just opens up the whole world of how you fly and where you fly.
Do you think it's a detriment, the kite risers and like the, I mean, not to cause any controversy here, but I'm just curious, right? Do you think it?
I think people are skipping steps because of it. Because like they weren't able to pull up like you said it yourself. I couldn't pull up another glider in those situations, but you could pull up a Parakite in strong wind. But do you have the skill set to soar in it? Do you have the experience to soar in it? A lot of people are skipping the steps and learning like downsizing and stronger winds. Like you don't just go out in 20 to 25 to 30, 20 to 30 and start soaring. You have to work your way up, do it in 15 miles, 17 miles, 20 miles an hour, 22
Right.
miles an hour. The wind gets really different at those speeds, and it's a lot in your head. It's a lot going on.
Sure. No, I
So I
agree,
think a lot of steps are being skipped for sure.
because it's easier.
I think
Hmm.
Right.
I think it's different, right? Like progress is good. I think that kite risers are amazing. They're opening up a lot of stuff. Like I said, for me, the part that I'm kind of giggling about is the fact that all of a sudden people are like, "Oh, I have glide. I can do stuff," right? And I'm like, "Yes, you can. That's awesome," right? And so, bringing that style into to people, I think is great. But yeah, as Bonnie said, I think it's a bit of a double-edged sword, and I think that you know my advice to anyone watching this that cares is that like kite risers are super duper duper cool, but they're a tool, right? And they're just something that you need to learn in addition to everything else. And going back to what I was saying about how you fly and energy management and all that kind of stuff, um, you know, if you can learn to utilize them, they're great. But if you rely on them, right? If you get to the point where, you know, you don't really fully understand why the wing is behaving the way it behaves or how it's going to behave or what it's going to do, then you're back into that luck bucket that we were talking about earlier, right? So, I think people should learn them, people should enjoy them. But the last thing I'll say about it is, I think some folks are getting on them way too early, right? I will say this: I have a 6.8 meter Fury Max, right? That's one of my speed riding wings. And going back to what you were saying earlier about speed riding, you have a lot of surfaces. Oftentimes, when I fly off a cliff with that thing, I'm flying my skis before the wing is flying. You know what I mean? Like I
Yeah.
have to think about the angle tech. I mean, it's
Sure.
an absolute weapon and it hauls ass. And that's a 6.8 meter, right? And the 10-meter line is faster.
Hmm. Oh yeah.
And when I flew that, it blew my mind because most people are not going to buy a 6.8 meter. Most people are not going to sell most people a 6.8 meter. But a 10 meter has a different, kind
Still
of
small,
aura to it. And I know
but
that,
it's, yeah. No, I'm saying, like,
but
I agree. It's still small, but it's not a 6 meter. Like it's
yeah,
you know what I mean. But you're right. Like my 13 meter line was faster than my 9 meter Rapidos in the same kind of, like I could not get the Rapidos to go as fast as the line. It was crazy, and it's like,
Mhm.
four. It's a significantly bigger wing. I mean, when you just lay them out, it's way bigger, um, way
yeah.
faster. It's that those things are insane. But
Yeah, so I just want people to be careful with that because
yes,
it again, like I said, these are things that in the history of speed flying when we were flying wings, like you're talking about the phaser, you were never going to get a phaser to go anywhere near that kind of speed. It just was never going to happen. Even if you were flying at 8.5, right? It was never going that fast. And now you just go hands up, right? And so that's my only like caution with folks in kite risers is that like a lot of people are getting into them. They're getting into them very early. Stay on the big ones, right? But even recognize that the big ones are still really fast, right? And they're still pretty steep. And so I just hope with that folks, if they want to get into that style of flying, they should absolutely do that. But my advice is to not start there and to again, like you were saying, get a few sizes down on a traditional wing and then upsize on a kite riser wing and then kind of reteach yourself to come back down, right? Don't get in this mentality of, hey, I fly a 9, I should get a 9. Like, don't.
right. No, I agree. And the goal shouldn't be to fly the smallest wing you can fly. I think that's something else. And I saw it in skydiving a lot, and I see it in these worlds where it's like, you're not cool if you're flying a double digit wing. And I wholeheartedly disagree with that. I mean, you can have so much fun on a 16 Mirage, probably way more fun than you'll have on a, an 8.5 Mirage, I mean, because you can do more, right? I mean, yeah, you get more material to manipulate, but it's not like, it's not like you're less cool. It's just like this weird stigma that I would love to just erase because it's so wrong and it's a trap, so no, I fully agree with that.
To add to that a little bit, like again, not that anyone ever needs the respect of somebody who's been in the sport a while, but watching a good pilot on a big wing is way more impressive than a bad pilot on a small wing. Right. In fact, most of the time, the bad pilot on a small wing, we're not watching. We're turning our heads away. We don't even want to see it, right? Because we know what's going to happen. So, be the good pilot. And you can be a good pilot on a big or a small wing, but again, be a good pilot. Like that's all it boils down to. And so fly something that's teaching you, fly something like, don't be in a rush because downsizing is doing nothing but taking money.
I agree. Any parting words? Any extra words of wisdom? I feel like the whole time we've been talking, it's just been like wisdom, and it's been amazing. I really appreciate both of your time tonight. But yeah, anything? Well, I guess we could start with this. Where can people find you on the interwebs?
Well, you can find us on the internet and in person. We have a Little Cloud USA. We have an upcoming events page, and we're always posting where we're going. So we'll be at Saboba for the Halloween Boogie this weekend, and cool. Yeah, I wish you could join us there. That'd be super fun. But we hope to get to meet up and fly with you again sometime. And
definitely, cool. Yeah. I wish I could. I'm not quite there yet. My leg is still. I had an appointment this morning, and it's looking good for skiing in a month. But and as far as taking impacts between now and then, it's not quite there. So, but I'm trending in the right direction. So we're getting there. But yeah, otherwise I would love to join. But definitely we'll be reaching out to you guys because I'd love to come out to California and learn how to ridge soar. And obviously, next year at Speedfest, I'll be out there. Lord willing, of course, but that's the plan, be out there. So
yeah, we'll be there too.
Knock on wood, right?
It's a fun spot. But yeah, we always invite people to come fly with us, and our spot is pretty special. It is seasonal, so March to October is really, really good. Cool. So spring is amazing. Spring and summer are the best. Awesome.
Great. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate both your time.
By the way, that's Muscle Rock. A lot of people don't know where we're at, but Muscle Rock. I was going to say, wait,
I knew it, and that's why I didn't even say it. But yeah, Muscle Rock in San Francisco. Yep, very cool. Beautiful spot.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, guys. If you get, any other words, Jared? You got anything else for us? Where can people find you? Same.
Yeah,
Cloud USA.
Yeah, this sport is amazing, right? And I think it was Steve Meyer on a podcast that many years ago said, like, I want to be the 60-year-old guy or whatever he said that's like still doing this. Mm-hmm. That's how I feel, right? I want to do this for the rest of my life, and I want the rest of my life to be long and fun, right? And so to anybody watching this, like, take your time with the sport. It's super fun, and like, just don't be in a rush, right? Nobody's getting rich off this. Nobody, not a single person, right? Nobody's getting really famous off this, right? You'll be famous until you get hurt, and then the next guy will be famous, right? So like, just enjoy the sport, like have fun with everybody, fly with people. The best part for me is a high five in the LZ or a high five walking down because we didn't fly, right? But yeah, just like for anybody that's getting into this, like just enjoy yourself because it's super fun and you can do it for a long time.
That's really sound wisdom and advice. And yeah, I hope people internalize that. And I'm right there with you. I want to be doing this till I'm 80. So I stole it from Shane McConkey, but what I always tell my partner is I'm going to die in simultaneous orgasm at 80. So it's a Shane McConkey quote, but I have used it because I love that. I'm like, yes. Unfortunately for him, that was really sadly not the case. But and for so many others. But let's be the one that makes it to 80. That's the goal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
Yep.
Well, thanks so much, you two. I appreciate your time and hope to see you guys soon. And happy flying. And yeah, hopefully we'll come up here and ski. Let's go skiing.
Yeah.
We'll do it.
We'll do it. Yeah.
Anyway, cool.
Yep.
All right. Well, I'll talk to you guys soon.
Cool.
Thanks so much.
All
See you
right.
later.
Thank you.
Thanks.